Well, our Director of News and Politics Editor, Sumner Sambo, joins us now for more on the action of the last few days, politically speaking. Thank you so much for being on the news tonight. Well, the elections have come, maybe not totally gone, because we do have some outstanding, inconclusive, and yet to be concluded states. But winners have been declared in most of the states. We've seen losses, we've seen winners. And some would say perhaps the biggest upset we've seen is that of an incumbent public office holder in Nigeria not being able to retain his seat. I wonder how big that is, because you hear election observers, including the EU mission observer, talk about the power of incumbency in Nigerian politics. So how big is that? And how many states have been affected so far when you say an incumbent doesn't return? We know 11 governors were seeking re-election.
Thank you. I presume you're talking about the Zamfara State Governor, Bello Matawale, who has lost his seat. Well, it's been there happening, and I would like to start by saying that this is the second time that's happening in the history of Zamfara State politics since 1999, because we had another governor who had a similar to Mahmoud Shinkafi between 2007 to 2011. So they came in through ANPP himself, and then the former governor, Yerima, handed over power to him in ANPP after he had done his 2 terms. And then Mahmoud Shinkafi got into ANPP but had problems with his godfather then, Ahmed Yerima. So he defected alongside some of the ANPP executives to the PDP. But unfortunately for him, Yerima came back and teamed up with some leaders and ousted him, and then now brought Abdulaziz Yari in 2011. So it's the same thing that happened to Governor Bello Matawale too, who wasn't, although elected by the people, but because of the problems that happened between Abdulaziz Yari and some of the people in the APC, then the Supreme Court, of course, that famous judgment by the Supreme Court, stripped all of them from participating. So APC lost out throughout. And then PDP was asked to take over. And he did, as the PDP candidate who had lost the governorship election. But because of the Supreme Court judgment, he now became a Supreme Court governor, if I may borrow that term. Yes. And so because of the fear that he may actually lose the election, and of course the APC was cutting several governors everywhere, he jumped ship and entered the APC. And one thing that gave him confidence ahead of this election was that all the former governors of Zamfara State came together and supported him for his second term. But unfortunately, they left some gap, which is the people. And a lot of people were actually angry with certain politics that he did, the banditry and all of that. And unfortunately for him, he couldn't survive
the sacking of his deputy.
Yes, and all of that, yes. Who is Aliu Gusau, General Aliu Gusau's son, and all of that. You know, all that happened.
So you cannot discountenance
that. So all of those forces combined together, you know, ousted him, and he has now lost. So he's the second governor in Zamfara State history that's moving from one political party while in power, and then his power of incumbency couldn't help him, just like Mahmoud Shinkafi between 2007 and 2011. Now, the next person who is having that challenge or may survive the challenge is Governor Amadou Fintiri of Adamawa State. But you can see him, he's waxing stronger. He has better hopes, better chances because of the way things are going alongside the APC candidate. At least he is still in the race. He hasn't gone. So out of all the 11 governors that were seeking re-election, these are the 2. One lost out. One is still in the race, awaiting the INEC date, while the other ones, 9 of them have already crossed over.
We've seen a lot of protests coming from candidates who lost the governorship election in Kano State, which was keenly contested. You know, the APC say they are rejecting the results and the rest. Abia is on a kind of tentacles, right? The results not yet announced, but we hear that that result may be announced tonight. Well, just give us an update about some of, you know, the intrigues from Enugu to Abia, to Kano.
Well, Abia own is the one that's in the eye of the storm now. You must have heard one famous local government being called over Obingwa. So in that local government, you're seeing the election result for the governorship election, returning more votes based on what we are hearing and the figures that were being brought, more than the state houses of assembly elections. On an election that held the same day, and the same papers were given, because just like the presidential and senatorial House of Rep elections were held at the same time, when a voter goes, he collects all the papers. It's the same thing for the governorship and then state houses of assembly. But now the tally for the state houses of assembly is returning a different result from that of the presidential, governorship. And so that's why you see the Labour Party individuals, the candidate and so many people, you know, being angry here and there, and they are screaming that look,
before they go and
from the result that we have, it looks like Labour Party is leading, but something wants to happen. The allegations that the state governor Obingwa happens to be his local government, and a lot of things are happening there. The allegations here and there.
The wreck was in Abuja.
Yes, and INEC headquarters had to intervene in all of that. So it's left to be seen what INEC will take as the final decision. But that's why they are saying that the Beavers machine, the number of accredited voters must be revisited, because it will tell us if indeed those people who went and encircled the local government office of INEC tampered with the results or not. Because the machines will tell you those who were accredited, and then if there's the issue of overvoting, of course, INEC knows the right decision to take.
Okay, there are also states that are flipped. If we could just have that slide brought up one more time for our viewers to see. In this election so far, we've seen, there they go. 4 states have flipped. Yes. It used to be for one party.
Just change parties.
Change parties. Now, what would you say was responsible for this? I mean, in a state like Benue, despite the Governor Tom, showing support for Labour Party for the presidential election, we saw that the APC took control of the state in the governorship elections. And we're seeing other states. What did you make of this? President Muhammadu Buhari has released a statement tonight praising Nigerians for their maturity when it came to this election. Would you say that the voters are more mature, like the president was trying to say? Is that why we're seeing this kind of flips?
Yes, there's been a lot of sophistication among voters, irrespective of some of the violence, some of the challenges of overvoting, and then the late delivery of electoral materials. In areas where the INEC officials have performed very well, you will see that the results have turned out with voters being sophisticated. So for state houses of assembly elections, they vote one party, and when it comes to governorship, they vote another one. And you see that for presidential election, the result was different, and then for National Assembly or even House of Rep, the results were different. Now, if you take a look at some of these states, you see Benue. I mean, it's always been a PDP state all the way, but over time, the politics changed, especially with George Akume's entry into the ACN then. And then when ACN formed and became APC, he brought his weight into it. And in 2015, he used that political machinery to actually ensure that Otom became governor. But Otom, in his own wisdom, decided to leave. And in 2019, he flipped through the support of the anti-Buhari, phenomenon here and there. He was able to get back to power. But we've seen the emergence of godfathers. Like I've said, both new godfathers and old godfathers. Now,
godfathers like Akume.
Akume is actually an old godfather, an old war horse in the politics of Benue State, and you can see that happening. Now, for Kano, you would have seen that it's a continuation of the Kwankwansia political family. They actually promoted Abdullahi Ganduje, who's the incumbent governor, and brought him to power, but he decided to become his own man, and unfortunately he fell out. But this Abba Kabir Yusuf was sponsored by Kwankwanso in 2019 under PDP, but that couldn't hold waters. Their political sojourn in that PDP came to an end when they eventually came to NMPP. And you can see that when he was sponsored in NMPP, he eventually won. But they are disputing this. Now, you go to other states where you see things that are happening, and you wonder if indeed there's political growth and development. Yes, we seem to be having some political growth and development. You will see, for example, before I come to Nasarawa State there, look at a state like Taraba. Didn't you see some surprise? The NMPP came second in that state.
Yeah.
Unlike before, and they are even going to the tribunal to go and challenge. They got about 200 and something votes, 1,000 votes, while the PDP, which has traditionally won that seat, got about 300,000 with Agbu Kefas emerging. So there's some level of sanity in the electorate there. For them to have decided to give NNPP a chance, it means somehow the results, there, and the electoral officials actually did their job very well, because this is a party that nobody gave opportunities. We had thought that NNPP would even perform better in Nasarawa State because of the way Kwankwanso was doing a lot of shuttling here and there. But we can see that in that state, it worked well. You come to Nasarawa, you see that the Labour Party and the PDP teamed up together. But unfortunately, because of the division among those who are supposed to have even been winning this election in that state, that's, you talk about the Egon people and all of that, it's been a major challenge. And of course, they fell into the hands of an incumbent. And of course, he had the day. But of course, majority of these political parties that are switching from one state or the other, it's sometimes it's because of ideology, sometimes it's because of the characters of the people, and sometimes it's because of what the people actually want. So sometimes even popular candidates that lost elections before are brought into another political party and they win. And so as we try to round off this conversation, one thing that's very important here is that we haven't seen all the winners yet. Because of the closeness of some of these results, it's the courts that will eventually tell us who won some of these elections.
Thank you so very much, Sumner Sambo. Good place to drop the anchor. Sumner Sambo is a RISE News Director and Politics Editor.